Good evening. I would like to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting for June 10th, 2021 to order at 6:33. Excuse me. First order of business is just to announce our annual town meeting is June 12th, 2021 at 10 a.m. It will be outdoors next to the town hall unless it does rain. And in the event of rain, it will be inside. One other quick note is that potentially we may not have our moderator at the town meeting. He may not be available to attend. And in that event, we would be nominating someone to act as moderator. And then the next thing up is the hearing on the annual entertainment license application of Handcrafted Catering for events located at 2 Depot Street, owned by the Berkshire Scenic Railway Museum, Inc. So I move to open the public hearing on the annual entertainment license application of Handcrafted Catering for events located at 2 Depot Street, owned by the Berkshire Scenic Railway Museum, Inc. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi, Patrick. Hi.
Hi, Roxanne.
Hi, Chuck.
So Justin, would you like to present your information for us?
Yes, thank you for having me tonight. I was able to meet with Susan Babbins and Mark Seagars, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, on site. And we now have an agreement. I believe also, Patrick, that Mark had sent you an email, and they I've provided them with a certificate of insurance, which we will do ongoing, naming them as additional insured. And we all met at the site and looked at the site in between so there's no impediment as to where we would be putting tents for events. And in terms of our parking, we have 36 spots that the train station owns, and Laurel Hill agreed that we could on the loop on the additional side, leaving room for emergency vehicles, of course, that we could park additional cars to reach the 50-person bylaw. We're not going to be using the field that goes down to the Housatonic River. That's something that Laurel Hill does, I guess, was in the past and does not want to use. So we're agreeing to never use that. That's not on the table. But essentially, they have no objection and to the approval of the permit, and we're happily working together. And they're hoping to use it as a meeting house here and there, and for events as well. So we've tied that up with Laurel Hill.
Good. I saw the Laurel Hill memo. In fact, I forwarded it as an FYI to Michael and the rest of the board. Did you all see that?
I did not see that. When did you do that?
I did it about 4 o'clock. Michael sent it to me this afternoon.
There you go.
So do you guys want to take a second and read it? Yeah, okay. Do you want to, do we need to do anything like take a break? Or no? I don't know what the procedure is.
Give us a chance to look at this. So do you have anything in writing, Justin, from Laurel Hill Association?
I do. I now have the email that you're probably looking at, and then I have an also actual binding agreement with between Laurel Hill and myself. That
What's
Mark
the total?
Mark is,
Chuck, can we just,
Excuse me.
but Chuck,
But
Do you have something to say?
I was just asking, what's the total number of parking spots you have now?
between
so you'd want to read it first.
we could actually overshoot the bylaw, but between Laurel Hill and what the train station has, we would be around 55 spots, I believe.
Okay.
And how will you keep, you say that, you know, in the roundabout, in the circular driveway, we need to keep it clear for emergency vehicles. including fire trucks, and how will we make sure if people are coming in and parking that, they're actually not parking in a way that obstructs that?
So when we run events, we're a professional company and we would have like a valet service. And again, for most events, frankly, we would not want 50 cars there, to be honest with you. Again, we would be implementing shuttle services and things of that nature, just because of the ambiance and the aesthetic alone. If there was some kind of community event, or for some reason, or a budgetary constraint of a particular client that we were looking to accommodate, and we were pressing up against 30, 40 cars, we would have a insured valet service on site.
Okay.
Where would they be valeted from and to?
They would be valet parking in the 36 spots that the train station owns and the additional spots that Laurel Hill is granting us use of. So they would be parked, to answer Patrick's question correctly, so that emergency vehicles could come throughout.
All right, well, we have yet to see any kind of a layout in terms of how the space is going to be used, where these parking spaces are proposed to be, and also where you would be erecting tents. Do you have any kind of a diagram that would show us exactly how the property is going to be used for one of your events?
Yes, I do have that, and I'd be happy to provide it. I don't have that set up to screen share now. I thought the big sticking point last meeting was to discuss with Laurel Hill, which we've successfully done. I'd be happy to provide all the diagrams that you'd like.
Okay.
One of the questions should be whether or not the tent, will the tent be over any of the parking spaces as proposed?
Exactly, we don't know where the tents are going to go.
Yeah, the tent is on train station property on the triangle that would end a few feet actually from Laurel Hill property, where there's a post. And so, again, it's pointless for me to try to describe that visually. I'd be happy to provide a diagram, but no, the tent does not come anywhere near parking facilities.
Justin, didn't your,
Well, excuse me, Patrick, I have one more question. So
okay,
do you have the ability to do screen share? I mean, we can give you the ability to do screen share if you have some kind of a diagram showing the map of the property. And perhaps it would be easier to describe exactly what you're talking about if we can see a visual.
I can certainly try to do that. However, in the interest of everyone's time as well, I have to dig through streams of emails, because again, I thought, when I applied for this and then we were going through to the hearing, that the conversation was to make sure we weren't impeding Laurel Hill and on the same page. Essentially, I'm not organized for that. I would have pulled that because I have to go through emails just to find like the property shot that I have, et cetera, and so on. And it would just be haphazard. I'd rather provide you with everything succinctly that you're asking for.
Okay, well, and as I recall on your original application, I think your maximum number of guests would be, patrons would be 120, I believe, or 150, Michael?
I believe it was 125.
it was 175.
No, wasn't that 125?
I put down 125
25.
is what I put down, which is where most weddings land at, essentially.
Okay,
Well, but that would be a hard limit. I'm sorry, can I?
go ahead. Yeah.
That would be a hard limit though for attendance. I mean, if you have 50 parking spots, I believe the bylaw says 2.5 people per car.
Correct.
So that's one issue. My larger issue, Justin, is this. It's my understanding that you have a off-premises liquor license related to your catering business from New York State. Is that true?
No, that's not true. We work with a Massachusetts licensed.
Okay, so you have an off-premises liquor license in Massachusetts. If you are the applicant and running this business, it is no longer off-site. And I don't understand how your liquor license, which only works for off-premises events, can be then applied for an on-premise event if you are the license holder. So
It's-
the bigger
it's two
issue for me
separate-
is how you're gonna, I'm sorry.
Two separate conversations, Patrick, because what we're looking to do here is we're looking to license the venue, because I can't in good faith sell you a wedding next June without knowing if that wedding is going to be approved. I also do not have the time to and the money to for every client that inquires to put together a one-day permit. So we need to be established as a venue. Then when we would be doing the event, we would be putting in the proper paperwork each time for the liquor permit. I'm doing an event for 150 people tomorrow at the Berkshire Botanical Garden. Same situation. I provided them with our tip certified that Dana Audia is using, which was approved by the board. But I need the
And-
venue to be
And they
approved
apply for a special permit, didn't they, Justin?
for the liquor, correct? But I
No,
need the venue to be approved so that I can sell.
They're two different things.
No, I understand. I'm saying many folks in the past have successfully applied for special permits. We don't, as a rule, deny them. And I'm not certain that this is. I'm just not sure I'm comfortable with the atypical lease arrangement. But, you know, you can make your case. I'm still of an open mind.
Yeah, I mean, my lease arrangement is really not of concern either, I would say, to the permit that I'm requesting. These are all separate things, Patrick, respectfully.
Michael, I'm sorry, Justin, you're applying for the ability to do 365 events a year. Okay, entertainment license gives you the right to program throughout the entire year. And we're hearing about valets and about how the weddings people are gonna be picked up at Airbnbs. And I'm skeptical that you can pull it off. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just telling you that, like, you know, these licenses give you tremendous authority to run really whatever you want, however much you want. And it all sounds great, this kind of plan. I wrote a few business plans that went south pretty quickly. And I just don't know that we're gonna be able to kind of jerry rig it like this.
So Patrick, just if I can, Chairman. So just a couple points here. Yes, we are dealing with the entertainment license alone. So as far as each one, he'll have to come in and apply for his liquor license on a one-day thing, or at some point, he could come forward and apply for a liquor license on the site. But what we are discussing tonight is strictly the entertainment part. So this would allow him to hold events, hold weddings, have live entertainment and the rest, but would not allow him to have alcohol at him unless he applied for the one-day license or went for a full license.
And the entertainment,
Second is our criteria for off-street parking now has been addressed. He's asked for a license. We would put the condition on there for 125 is a maximum. He has enough now to have 137 guests based on our bylaw, based on the 36 lot spots that the train station has and the additional parking that he would have around his thing.
well, I think the 50 parking spaces covers his 125.
Yes, it does, right.
So that's been addressed.
Yep.
And obviously Justin is aware that his other option would have been to go for one-day licenses for every one of these events.
Mhm.
So he's mentioned that, he's clearly aware of that. So that's the issue that's on the table tonight. And I would say that basically we have to deliver a decision within 30 days. And I would say we could schedule coming to a decision our next meeting.
Isn't the deadline tomorrow, or is that just to hold the hearing?
We had to hold the hearing by today, or by tomorrow. We've held the hearing now. Now you have 30 days to render the decision. So the one thing we can ask is that Justin, just update your drawing to show where the parking and tents will be located and submit that you can submit it to me to give to the board for them to.
We'd like
The
to see a
ruling for the
visual, Justin, just
next
because it's been a little bit
I'd
unclear
love to
what
provide that.
exactly is happening where on the property.
I'd be honored to provide that, as well as, you know, references and experiences of us pulling these off upwards of 700 person events a day for over, the past 7 years. Who is talking that I can send that to? I can't see you on the screen, sir.
Oh, I apologize, Michael Canales, administrator. If I turn on my microphone, so if you go to gallery view, you can see me. But if I turn on my microphone, it plays off the microphones that the selectmen are using.
Justin, you can send it to selectmen at Stockbridge,
Town of Stockbridge account.
Yep.
So we're, yeah,
stockbridge-mass.gov
MA.
or ma.gov or town administrator. Same
Okay,
thing,
thank you.
at stockbridge-ma.gov.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
All
I
right,
have one question for Michael before were you able to find out if that building, that property is in a residential or business zone?
It's in business.
it's in the business.
Okay.
Chuck, did you have any other comments or
Yes.
questions?
Where are you doing your cooking for these events?
We have a kitchen in West Stockbridge, a commercial licensed kitchen with the health department and Serve Safe.
So everything will be delivered, cooked?
No, we do about 30% prep. We're a farm to table company, local, sustainable. So we do 30% prep in a commercial kitchen with cold holding. We build out cook tents and cook fresh on site.
Okay, can you put all that in your plans too, where the cooking is?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Okay, that's great. And it's nice you're doing farm to table around here. That's excellent. Thank you.
So does anyone else wish to speak in favor or in opposition? All right, hearing none, I move that we continue and make a decision. I move that we close the hearing, sorry. And I move that we continue.
I don't think we're closing the hearing, are we?
Yeah,
Now you move to this, now you'll make your decision within 30 days. So now you have to,
Oh, I see. So we're not going to have any.
this is the public comment.
that we're closing the hearing. So second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Aye, Roxanne.
hi Chuck.
So we will have a decision for you at our next meeting, Justin. And the date of that, Michael, will be
It's the 17th.
the 17th.
Thank you so much. Have a
You're
nice.
welcome. Okay, we have to take action on the meeting minutes from May 13th, May 20th, and May 27th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. Now we have to, let's see, take action on a one-day alcohol license for Chesterwood Museum for a wedding on June 12th, 2021 from 4 PM to 11 PM. Do we have anybody here representing? Have the two of you both seen this?
Yeah.
It's,
Comments?
nope, it's all in the,
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve the license for January, June 12th.
For Chesterwood.
Chesterwood.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next on the agenda, appoint Joe Tinetti to the Stockbridge Cultural Council for a 3-year term. And Joe, you are here. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. What does the cultural council do?
It distributes money that the state gives us, that we had to adopt it. It's partly Stockbridge taxpayers give a couple % of their payments go into the cultural council and we get a match from the state. And so, programs, small events.
Patrick, I'm sorry, that's actually not completely accurate.
You're not doing, I've been on it for years.
Karen.
Yeah. I'm the chair of the Cultural Council. The money comes from the state budget. There's a Massachusetts Cultural Council and it's one of their grant programs. They distribute to local cultural councils.
And what do you use it for?
Oh, we fund programs at Chesterwood, dance programs. We fund individual artists. If you look in the town report, I've got a list of all the
Yeah,
people
that's
we
great.
funded this year.
Okay.
So it's a great little program, and we do well with it. And you have to have at least 5 members, and so we're always looking to add new people. We will have 8 once we add Joe. So I
And we're-
strongly urge you to appoint Joe.
So Joe, you come highly recommended. Anything you'd like to tell us about yourself?
Well, I'm a Stockbridge resident. I have lived here for 11 years and I recently bought a house here in Stockbridge and I enjoy the community. I've always been active in the arts and I want to continue along that lines. I work at the Norman Rockwell Museum as well. Obviously, if we had any business with the Norman Rockwell, I would recuse myself from that particular specified sort of decision, but I've worked also at different times with Karen a little bit, and so I trust her, and she has sort of gave me a little bit of what insight of what they're doing, and it seems like a great program to be involved with, especially for Stockbridge. I think it's a good thing.
All right, thank you. Do you have any questions?
No?
I just want to thank you for being part of the town and participating in the town. Great to see that.
I look forward to it.
We have a question from Richard Seltzer.
Karen, what is the annual budget of your council? And what's the largest gift you've given in the last 12 months?
The budget ranges between 4,500 and 4,800, depending on the state budget, how much they're giving to the arts. So, and the largest we've given out is about 500 or 600.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Joseph to the.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi. Congratulations.
Good luck and thank you.
Congratulations, and thank you very much for being
Both of you.
willing to participate.
Thank you all as well. I appreciate the opportunity.
See people getting involved.
I know. All right, next, we're just going to briefly discuss our weed harvesting challenges for this year. Jackson Alberti of Foresight Engineering went before the Conservation Commission this week. What we are still waiting for is NHESP determination, which is due to come back to us within 30 days of them receiving this. And so it's due to be back by 6/18, June 18th.
Right?
And there were also DEP notes that came in the day of the Conservation Commission meeting, which Foresight and Jackson, and I think Steve Mack also is involved in terms of answering those particular points that were brought up. There'll be a slight modification to the map. Apparently the yellow lines just went a little too far and they were hitting the restricted areas. So they're going to modify that. Clearly, one of the restrictions we have is that we cannot harvest in any of the either the test zones in the order of conditions for the SBA herbicide project or the control area. So that obviously is understood that we will be avoiding those areas, and they just have to tweak the map a little bit and they will be responding. And the next Conservation Commission meeting, where we believe, we hope that everything then will be in and all questions will be answered, will be June 22nd. So we're kind of looking forward to that. I had noted and reached out to Richard and asked about the delineation of the test areas in the control area. And they have not done that yet. Richard tells me, and I'll just let you tell your story, Richard.
We were supposed to start the test protocol under the orders of condition last summer, but the milfoil fooled us and went into recess almost around the entire lake. So that there was no milfoil to test in the two test areas. DEP agreed with us to adjourn by 1 year all the test protocol. I felt that it was urgent that we examine the lake and see where the milfoil is growing this year before we jump out of the starting blocks. If we were fortunate and it didn't have milfoil again, we'd have to tell DEP that we want to adjourn again. Right now, I spoke to the harbor master today, and he confirmed what I've been seeing, that there's a lot of milfoil on the lake this year. In front of my property, it's broken the surface and is prolific. Gary Kleinerman says he's seen it in many other parts of the lake. I've arranged with Solitude Lake Management to come next Tuesday and inspect the circumference of the lake to see what nuisance vegetation is growing, where it's growing, and specifically to determine whether it's growing in the test areas and in the control areas.
You don't have the right to harvest nuisance vegetation. This is an ecological restoration. You're harvesting an invasive species. So we can see nuisance vegetation all over the lake. I was there today and there's all sorts of natives there, but that's not what this is about.
Well, Patrick, that's a discouraging thing to disclose to the town because in every year when we've done harvesting on the lake, which didn't include last year because no harvesting was done, the harvester would temporarily abate a lot of nuisance vegetation in addition to the invasive species. Last summer, I was getting phone calls throughout the summer from people who were quite alarmed by invasive species, by nuisance species that were not invasive. So I asked council, outside council, is it permissible in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to harvest nuisance vegetation that's non-invasive? And they said, after researching it, that it is absolutely permissible as long as you can show that you're not harming the habitat of any endangered species, plant or animal. And the test under the state regulation is 2 years after you've done the harvesting, is the animal or the plant that's endangered still present? I checked with Tom Coate, of professor at Simon's Rock, who's helped the town, helped the SBA for decades. And he confirmed that harvesting will not endanger any endangered species.
Well,
But,
can I ask a question here? Can I get a clarification? Because you're talking harvesting,
yeah, that's
but
what Patrick was.
No, I was talking about, okay, that's not, but
yeah, and I think you said harvesting, but basically the SBA project is the herbicide test and control area. And so that's what your intention is to go out next Tuesday with Solitude and go and check for where the predominant areas are, where those predominant areas of milfoil might be. And then once that's determined, then you have to make a determination. Do you have to move your test and control areas, correct?
Absolutely, that's the whole point of
Right.
going and looking to see if milfoil is in the already designated test areas, or do we have to move the test area to where there is prolific milfoil?
So if we move the tester,
Patrick was raising something different.
No,
Patrick was alarmed that we should be noting where there is nuisance vegetation that's non-invasive. And people can get their,
for the harvesting, it's fine, Richard, not for the herbicide program.
well, you said harvesting, and that's all I was talking about.
I did say her. Okay, well, I got it wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, that's why.
I still have a comment though. I would like.
so if you're discussing possibly moving the test areas and moving the control areas, how does that affect the harvesting?
Until that order of condition changes,
You can't start.
I believe that what we have to abide by is what is in your current order of conditions. Now, you have a procedure to follow to change those locations, in which case we would be notified.
But what if you're already harvesting those locations?
Well, you should
Yes.
harvest in the two designated test
No, but
areas.
if you're moving the test areas and we harvested
No,
for,
I
We
can't
act on
move
what's
this
in the order of
unilaterally.
conditions
Chucky.
now. When
But
we're-
I'm just,
I can't move
Okay.
it unilaterally. I'll have to get in touch with DEP, and DEP will probably tell me to go.
okay, I just didn't want to know if that was,
I just-
affect the harvesting or not, or.
Michael?
So Chuck, in answer to your question, are already looking into it. We would begin harvesting around the existing test sites if they were so moved then our order of conditions would be to stay out of the test site. So if the test site's officially moved, now those areas would become
New area.
of the new area.
Exactly.
So we would be able to proceed with harvesting as is until notification of a moved site, and then we would adjust our plan around that. We
Okay.
wouldn't have to go back to the conservation, we wouldn't have to get a new permit, we wouldn't have to do, we would just, one of the conditions is we remain outside the test site. So if they change,
That's just
we
fine.
just adjust as we go along,
Our notice of intent is worded as such.
as such,
that we
yes.
are Avoiding the test areas, the control areas. So it doesn't matter. They can move.
No,
We have to go by what's on paper.
no, they can't. Well,
EP
You can move with DEP's consent.
consent.
all right, a couple things. One, we're very familiar, Richard, and anybody who's watching with 310 CMR 10.60, which you're referring to, which is the 2-year rule around habitat. Unfortunately, my opinion and your opinion doesn't matter when the Natural Heritage and DEP are telling us that they don't want us to use that regulation and they want us to keep it under 10 acres. So Roxanne and the SPSC came up with a 10-acre plan because that was the direction we got from DEP. So let's not make believe, let me finish. Let's not make believe that there is some way for us to do whole lake harvesting here because DEP has given us direction that they expect us to stay within the rest of the regulations, which limits it to 10 acres. That's the first thing. The second thing is in 2018, the NOI for herbicide had 130 data points throughout the entire lake that had milfoil. Last year, there were 0. Now this year, we're saying there may be some, but not in the areas that we expected. If this varies from year to year, there is no experiment that will be valid. There is no test, there's no control. If nature can vary how much we see from year to year, this is a ridiculous exercise that we're going through. Because
That's very insightful, and it's something that has occurred to me also.
I know, I can imagine.
DEP has permitted over 300 lakes, ponds, and reservoirs in the Commonwealth every year to be treated with herbicide, including 21 other lakes being treated with fluoridone. Yet, the only municipality in the Commonwealth that is being subjected to these protocols is Stockbridge.
Richard, you got a whole lake permit, which was based on the fact that the entire lake was full of an invasive.
Let me just finish. So you're absolutely correct. There's something fundamentally illogical, particularly given the variability of where there's milfoil. I was talking to Roxanne earlier this week, and I was saying, because I go sculling on the lake and I could scull around the perimeter. I've been doing it for decades. There are years when the milfoil is prolific near the causeway, years when it's prolific near Kripalu, years when it's prolific near Beechwood Beach, but not simultaneously at all those locations. And one year is no forecast of where it's going to be the next year. And yet DEP has come up with a protocol to count stems in a test area this year,
Okay.
treat it with fluoridone in the second year, count stems again in the third year in the same location. And the plants that are growing could be different in each of those 3 years, whether we're using fluoridone or we're not.
Richard, you negotiated the DP settlement. We didn't. We reacted to it. So I understand that this was the deal you negotiated and you may not like the deal, but it is your deal. The fact is, though, that the problem I have with all of this is we started off with milfoil throughout the entire lake. I remember the map. There were, there was the handfuls, there were whatever. And let me finish now. All right. One thing we have to bear in mind is there's 3 native types of milfoil. Unless you take it out and you inspect it, you can't tell the difference between native milfoil and invasive Eurasian milfoil. And so until Tom Cooter, some lake biologist tells us that these weeds we see is the milfoil, I'm not going to assume it's milfoil because last summer people all around the lake were telling us the milfoil problem was terrible and there wasn't any. All right. The other thing that I think that we need to bear in mind is that there was only a tiny bit of pondweed and it was over behind the island. We can't, I don't think DEP is going to be very receptive to rewriting the NOI. I think that they're already pretty upset with the town. I think they basically said, what do they say about the harvesting? We don't have time for you guys. We're giving you enough time. Just
Right.
have, yeah.
But But Patrick, I mean, you're chasing, a ghost here because basically it's on its way. We have a limited amount of time. We anticipate that this is going to go through. It is written in such a way that it honors and respects the SBA project. We will stay away from those areas. Whether or not those areas change is unknown at this point in time.
But if-
We don't know. We can only react with what we know. So what we know right now is that on June 22nd, hopefully we'll have an NHESP determination in. And Foresight will have, basically addressed the notes that came in from DEP, which was just really tweaking, and I think clarifying a couple of things. It seemed as though there was a little bit of misunderstanding and the map needed to just be tweaked. Other than that, and it sounds as though we're going to be ready to go, assuming those things happen.
No.
And it's very
I don't think
close.
that's, Roxanne, if they don't have an agreement with DEP by the 18th, when we can start harvesting about where those test and control plots might change.
We already have it in writing. There's an order of conditions that exists. That's what we will function under.
Right, but the problem is if we then go and harvest, we blow up the experiment.
No, we don't.
The whole point of not harvesting is you don't want to have two actions on the lake at the same time in those areas. We're trying to see if the order conditions the DEP wrote is intended to be an experiment to determine whether or not the herbicide is going to treat the problem without killing everything else. That was basically the gist of what they did. So the whole reason why they're excluding us from harvesting in the areas of the test and control plots is because you can't have two actions that might impact the experiment. So for 3 years, we can't do any work inside those areas. So if we start harvesting an area that they then pick as the test and control plot, they can't then start the herbicide test till 2022 because we'll have already started harvesting.
That was my point.
No. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Richard.
Right, but it still doesn't.
Richard, do you have a response?
Yeah,
Was that?
two things, Patrick. One, harvesting is not a fatal.
It's not for you to say, Richard. We have an agreement.
Let him speak.
All right, forget it.
Go ahead, Richard, please.
I also think that I've never seen the opinion of DEP nullifying the state regulation that says whatever you do is permissible as long as it doesn't damage habitat 2 years later. If you have that in writing, I would like to see that because I don't believe that DEP has the delegated authority to overrule that state regulation. And I don't think they can just informally tell a municipality, we've overruled a state regulation.
What you have to realize, Patrick, is we can only function under what are the facts at that particular time that we start harvesting.
Yes.
Okay, now, these test and control, two test areas and the control area might change based on the findings.
Mhm.
If they change, then we have to comply. Once DEP says, yep, you're going to change these areas, we get that blessing, that goes into their order of conditions for their project. And then we have to avoid those areas. Harvesting in and of itself does not kill the plants. The plants are still there. They're doing stem counts in those areas.
Mhm.
Okay, so all we're doing is giving it a haircut.
Then-
Maybe if, it gets moved to an area where we've already harvested, but all we're doing is giving it a haircut. Those stems are still there. Those plants are still there.
Within 3 weeks, they're back over the surface. They're so
The,
vigorous.
the scientist at DEP feels that harvesting has an impact on the herbicide test. That's why they banned us from harvesting in the two tests and the control plots. So if we then start harvesting everywhere else and we move the test and control plots, we will have broken the experiment.
I think that's up to DEP.
Yes.
I was just gonna say that the SBA has a perfect legal right to ask DEP to move the sites. We can only proceed with the facts as they are now, which we will stay out of the current ones. And if they so change, then everything has to be adjusted.
Mhm.
But we can't. I don't quite follow. The argument here isn't an argument because you have a right to move your test sites.
And we'll only move
No.
with
And we have,
consent.
if consented by DEP,
Mhm.
and we will operate the harvesting around the conditions, which is stay out of the test zones. That's all that we can operate based on those two facts. You can make an argument at the time that maybe the test zone shouldn't be changed, but if they are, we just have to adjust as that goes.
I'm just saying, if we've already harvested there, then we've broken the experiment.
Let me tell you.
That is.
That's not, but they have a legal right to appeal to change the site. So they can do that if they so choose. And if DEP allows them to move the site, but we can't operate on what ifs. So right now, the conditions are stay out of the current test zones. That's what we will operate as. If it is changed, then it's changed, but we can't hold up the harvesting or anything else based on
I've got-
might move. We have to just proceed as is. As far as whether whole lake or not, the decision the select board made was to have me contact with Foresight to pursue the 10-acre cutting. That was a choice.
And we
And
expanded.
that's a choice that-
Expanded more of littoral zone. So from what it was originally, it was even lower. It's now up to 7.3 acres, Richard, but it was even lower. And so after your suggestion, some other areas were little
Will be
passes
included. Good.
are included. So, but it's still only 7.3 acres.
I'm not sure if Anita still wants, she had her hand up.
I'm just
Okay.
Sure.
Can I just ask one other question, though?
I do.
Well, I don't- 1 second, Anita.
Okay.
If we start off in 2018 with 130 points where there's milfoil, and then in 2019, and in 2020, there's several, and let's say that it expands a little bit this year and there's 20, okay? If over the next 3 years, where we're running this experiment from year to year, if natural factors can wildly vary the amount of milfoil that might or might not be appearing, the whole impact of herbicide can't be known. This whole experiment, if we're now accepting the fact that milfoil can vary wildly from year to year, this whole experiment is ridiculous. And I don't understand.
But it's what we have to operate.
Yeah, we-
Argument you have to have with DEP. This is not a topic for us to debate.
Yeah, we didn't choose this. The SBA didn't choose it. The town didn't choose it.
Okay.
DEP, who think they are scientists, pronounced that this is how they want to run the experiment. They had the authority. They chose us out of 300 communities that use herbicide. They chose us to be the subject of an experiment, which
Well, we also have a very special lake though, Richard, too. We have a unique lake.
my guess is that a lot of others think their lake's pretty special too.
Yeah, biologically, we're a little unique. So anyway, Anita, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask, could you clarify, was that Richard Seltzer? I thought you called on Richard Seltzer. Is he there in person? Or
Yes.
is that Richard Rubin that's been speaking?
No, it's Richard Seltzer and he is here in person with
You can
us.
come up if you want. And
I
Hey, you
I
wanna
didn't
be on
know.
camera, Richard, come on up.
Thank you. It just
I would give me more.
didn't
notice.
sound like him. Paddle boarding?
Anybody else? have
Thank
their
you.
hand up?
No one else had their hand up.
All right, well, I think that we pretty much discussed this and what we're gonna do is whether there is a delineation or markers or buoys or GPS coordinates, we can easily give wide berth to what we know are those areas once we begin harvesting, and we're gonna anticipate, for a good result on June 22nd.
and when are the buoys going out?
That I don't know. They don't have to.
Yes, they do. It's in the order of conditions. They must go out. Well, it's not up to us to decide which part of these rules that the judge found us in contempt over, interpreting, and the DEP basically overruled our Concom. We don't have the
This is a
flexibility.
Negotiated settlement.
So next Tuesday, when we circumnavigate the bowl, I'll figure out with Solitude how we get markers anchored at the corners so that anybody operating a harvester will see a flag at each corner and know this is the start of where I can't go in, that's the end of where I can't go in. we'll try and make it as simple and
Yeah, perfect.
as visible as possible.
Thank you very much, Richard. All right, moving on. Something I wanted to bring up and just for us to discuss and maybe to have Mike look into was in Lenox, they have a pedestrian flashing sign at one of their crosswalks. And the red line in intersection on the Route 7 to the south side, where you hit the island where the cat and dog fountain is, and then you continue, I think is an extremely dangerous pedestrian crossing. And I was wondering if we should look into something similar to what Lenox is doing at one of their crosswalks. And it's a tall pedestrian crossing sign. And basically when somebody's using that crosswalk, it flashes, the light comes on. And so it's more of an alert. And it's also higher visually. So I just wondered what the two of you thought about that.
Yeah.
It's pedestrian activated, right? Pedestrian.
Right.
Push the
Can do it.
button,
Have we
it
ever,
starts flashing
Right.
for a predetermined amount of time.
Yeah, just
maybe
flashes for
10 seconds,
seconds.
30 seconds.
You program it based on the distance of the crosswalk.
It's
In
just,
order
How
for a
fast
person.
people walk.
Yep.
there's just so much to look at that intersection that,
Yeah, I just
Right.
worry about the one section when, from Judy Abdallah's corner,
that side of it.
that one space, because you've got people at the stop sign, which isn't too bad, although some of them aren't really paying enough attention, turning. So you've got that traffic to worry about as a pedestrian. But then you have coming up Main Street, people who are going to turn left to go south on 7. And those people are just booking through because they
Yeah.
have no stop. And those are the ones I'm really worried about. And I know that we've had pedestrians hit there before. Unfortunately, we've had one bad accident many years ago over by Elm Street. But the one I'm really worried about is that one at the Red Line. Inn.
Also, we allow cars to park very close to the pedestrian walk. And so sometimes people start out
right,
crossing and they're obscured by parked cars, and oncoming traffic doesn't even see them until they've stepped out beyond the parked car. Whereas if they could push a button to give a visual signal that pedestrians crossing, they'd be
the
protected.
visual signal would be for the cars?
Yeah,
It shows like,
Cars are alerted that somebody is.
and it also have an audio component in case somebody was visually impaired also.
So basically, and I'm only playing devil's advocate here. So basically, we're gonna have, because people are crossing there all the time. And so you guys are okay with the sound of that wah, 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 wah thing that's going off that you can hear from inside a car. Well, there's an audio component.
No, it's not for people inside the car.
If they're.
So the sound, when you have a controlled device such as a flashing, to me, ADA compliant has to have a sound component for the person that's pressing it. So that what happens is, say it takes 30 seconds to cross the crosswalk. For 15 seconds, the hearing portion will sound, telling a person that is blind that they can proceed into the intersection with enough time to fully cross it.
Which one, Linux?
So it has to have that component to be ADA compliant, and they're all built in. But it's just a beep, beep, beep. So the person that hit the thing knows that they can proceed. The reason why it only goes for 15 seconds is you wouldn't want it going all the way to the end because you don't want them stepping in the traffic when it's about to end. So it gets timed that way.
I'm just
So-
asking, should we look into
and
it?
we look at,
No, I'm saying, where's the one in Lennox?
One in Lenox is at the corner of, what is that? Church Street, comes out into Main Street?
By Lowe's?
No,
the other
that's
end.
Housatonic.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
The next corner,
Okay.
okay,
By Win Stanley, right, okay.
right, by Win Stanley's. Yeah,
So
so
the-
it's right there. So if you want to go look at it, but
Yeah.
I thought of that and I thought, well, it'd be worth just, if you two are in agreement, it'd be worth asking Michael to look into the details of that and what's involved. What's the code? I mean,
yeah,
what
definitely.
can you do and not do?
Well, don't we have an engineer looking at sort of that intersection?
We do, and what I could do is ask them to examine a controlled crossing for the sidewalk under the uniform traffic code, because that's what would dictate what we have to do there.
All right, so
Sure.
can we ask Michael to do that?
Yes,
I'm
Okay,
good with it.
Thank
go
you.
for it.
Okay, and next on the agenda, we have COVID-19 regulation updates.
Yeah. So not much has changed, but there's a number of items going for legislation. It was supposed to start today and tomorrow, such as extending remote participation by the board itself, not having to be physically present to September, outdoor dining until November 29th, and there's a couple things. So just so people are aware, I think I mentioned it last time, when there's a state of emergency, the governor can issue executive orders. When there's no state of emergency, it's got to be legislative action. So he has proposed a number of items for legislative action. I was hoping they'd have them determined so we could start announcing them tonight, but they're not yet finished. I went on their website to see if they were. They still have, for open meeting, it still says as of 12:01 a.m. on the 15th, you must be at public meetings. So the anticipation is most of these are going to pass. So there's a transition period. So I anticipate, and we'll do a further update on our next meeting on the 17th, because by then they would have either passed them or not through the legislation. So.
Okay.
Any questions? Anything from the public? No? Okay, moving on. Next item is Talbot Center. And this, we looked into a little bit, and I think both of you are aware, because I think this came up in another meeting potentially, that there's problems with the Talbot Center, and it's not ADA compliant, and obviously we have water under it. And so something that Mike and I had talked about was the potential of being able to move it and utilize at the highway garage. Near the highway garage, there is a barn that is on the left side when you come in. And being able to use that pad, take the building down, and then put in a prefab facility, all we'd have to run is electricity to that.
Mhm.
However, that property,
It's in the-
which you know
It's in the
probably,
birdie place.
The bird sanctuary.
yes. So in 1969, Mrs. Geraldine Foote donated the property in question, et cetera, et cetera. So that parcel, and we pulled the maps today, I pulled the map. And it's interesting, I'll pass it around if I can find the right one. It's right here. So we looked at this, and because there is a covenant, there's a deed covenant. So we can't swap with Conservation Commission, which Ron Broker had brought up at some point. So we can't do that. However, Conservation Commission are the managers for that property. So we would like to discuss the management of that property with Conservation Commission, and I'm going to pass this around. And unfortunately, I don't have this digitized tiny enough to show it to everyone. But it is parcel, if anybody wants to go out and look it up, it's map 219, lot 16 on West Stockbridge Road. And basically, I'll show it to you first. Here's that little building.
Yep.
It's way over here.
Yep.
Here's this whole lot. And
Well,
so we talked about a little bit is, well, what if we can, as part of the management, we just are allowed to use just this little sliver here. All the rest of it remains. This is high and dry up here, not in the wetlands. A lot of this property is wetland.
Can I make a proposal regarding Talbot Center?
Sure.
I've been out in Telluride skiing. It's a beautiful little town. They have something called the Free Box in the center of restored town. And anything that's in the Free Box, clothing, or car keys, anything, can be taken without any cash. Unlike the Talbot Center, though, once a week, anything that hasn't been claimed is thrown away. If it stays there 1 week and nobody wanted it, it's gone. In our Talbot Center, I walked in there and it looks like a junkyard.
Yeah.
It doesn't look very appealing. Now, there are some people who enjoy shuffling through junk and they find an occasional frying pan that they need or a radio that they think will work if they plug it in. But I think it would make the Talbot Center much more attractive. It might even get more people going there even didn't look like a junkyard. And I thought that what Telluride does with their free box of disposing of everything that has sat there for more than a week made a lot of sense.
Well, it could also be donated, you know.
Yeah.
Salvation Army or something. That has to do with the operation of the Talbot Center, which unfortunately, that's not what we're talking about tonight.
No, it's a great idea though.
But it's a good idea. And, you know, we can pass that along to Lisa Thorne in terms of a suggestion, because I don't think it's a bad suggestion. But what we would like to do, I think, what we might want to do as a board is try to talk to the Conservation Commission as the managers for this property to just get the use of a tiny strip of this that includes that pad. And so what we're hoping is if we can use, oh, thank you. If we can use that pad, take down the building and then put a prefab on there, we can pretty quickly be up and running in a much more attractive, brand new building without water underneath it, without moisture, you know,
And when was
without
the-
mildew.
When was the barn built?
When?
Yeah.
That I don't
For
know.
a long time.
So is it, yeah, because we have a historical preservation bylaw in town here, which is 50 years. So if it's from a 1969 parcel, that's 50 years ago. We're gonna have to deal with whether or not we can take it down and get those folks involved in that. And the other question I would have is, can we just take part of this via eminent domain?
No.
Why not?
Well, actually, to clear up a deed or something
Yeah.
like that, that's not unknown, even though it was in a covenant. But I think the first approach would be just to approach the conservation, since they have management. And we would just need from the small structure right here, just from the corner of it, going out to the here, and then going right along here, so we can put just a little bit of dirt parking and stuff right in there and put one handicap space in front of it. DEP does have a swap shop program, which we can look into also, which you can possibly get some funds for. And the swap shop is actually exactly how you detailed it. Their program, which is you put items in there and then
Yeah, be clear.
items are taken out. It's not really run as a, it's more of just as it says, a swap shop. So,
Right. I mean, the other consideration while this is up is it's been suggested by the transfer station attendant to move the shed up on the driveway here so that we're better controlling, you know, the in and out. So that rather than having people come in, you're monitoring them as they're coming in.
Right.
So that's another
That's
thought
exactly
that goes
what
along with this whole idea of being, if we can get a little strip there, you know,
I've been
it might serve us in several ways.
pushing for that for a while.
And Michael, does if we take what was in a covenant from a donor and use it for another purpose, whether we get permission from the Conservation Commission or not, do the heirs of that woman potentially have a claim because?
well, it's to be maintained as a bird and sanctuary. DEP has had stuff. There's been stuff all throughout that location, so I think we clean up everything there and we just at a minimum, you know, we're just asking to maintain, there's already a cement pad there. We're not asking to expand anything, just place a building onto it. The property remains 99% being used for what it was intended for. I think there might be a slight chance, but then we also talked about whether there's, you know, anything we could do on this parcel as far as to promote like a walkway through there for the actual bird sanctuary or something else. Part of it would be we clean up that whole edge, because that whole edge where that building is a mess.
Right.
And we went back and found that the town had surplus everything over there except for the old harvesters. So, and that's actually something I was gonna do for this meeting, and I'll try to get together for the next meeting, is declare the old harvesters surplus so that we can dispose as scrap.
It's the Sargasso Sea depth
Just-
there.
Clean we want to just, we're gonna scrap everything because we already put all of it out to see if anybody wanted them. The harvesters are completely broken down, so they're only scrap value. So you guys would declare them scrap, we would surplus, we would then propose to eliminate them by scrap. Hugh's already working on getting a price for all the metal that's in there and just clear that whole area out, clean it all up. Take the shed that's on that slab that's shown right there, down because it's pretty much falling apart. Tear that down, clean that up, and then basically put more of a shed on that. And I think it's like a 10 by 20.
Michael,
It's actually bigger. Lisa Thorne's comment to me
Bigger?
was.
It would be bigger than the
She
existing.
said, what we lose in length, we gain in width. So she was thrilled to death with this idea, so.
Michael, you might want to call, I think her name is Jane Doffenbach at Aquarius Solutions. They're the ones who sold us the blue harvester. They maintain many, many, many harvesters that are decades and decades old, and there may be more value to the parts in those old harvesters than you realize.
All right.
I can give
We
you,
declared surplus, we can contact them and have them give us a price
Yeah.
and scrap value. But either way, it's just an eyesore. There's a lot of.
I think we should get rid of them, but you know,
It's sitting there for years.
Oh, years.
Everything's been sitting there for you.
there's a rake, there's a hydro rake too.
There's plants growing into them. So it really needs to be.
So we're in the
Yeah.
process. So anyway, so.
I'll
that
make
is
a
something we can-
motion that you look into the conservation to allow that.
All right, I'll second.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That fails, we'll go the other route.
So if I can add one thing to tonight's agenda, because it actually literally came up in the last couple of hours.
Okay.
So you may have seen that there were some National Grid trucks on our main street, vans and others. We have a power outage in one of our underground legs, and they're trying to identify where. So in the meantime, they contacted the town, I contacted Ned. 43 Main Street is going to be powered right now only by a generator. So it's being put in as an emergency. And they are working on identifying the exact location of where it is underground, so that the repairs can be done. But in the meantime, so the businesses at that address can operate, there's going to be a generator put in, because if not, that building would be without power.
Which one's
So-
43?
I'm not sure. And that's the one that knows. I knew somebody was going to ask that. I'm like,
Follow it up.
oh. Yes, thank you.
Do we have a list of the properties that are under the management of the Conservation Commission in town?
Sure, we can pull that together. Yeah.
I think we should, because I don't believe the town has in a long time provided the Conservation Commission with any resources to actually manage these lands. And I know at least the one by me, that 25 acres, that is about a half mile of frontage on Lily Pond, has a pretty significant stand of Phragmites, and we're supposed to be sort of managing it to, it's a nature preserve, and, and so we might just want to kind of do an inventory. If we're going to start talking about improving this lot, why not sort of,
Doesn't the Conservation Commission have that kind of a list?
I have no idea.
I would think this is, okay, this is in conjunction with this property.
Mhm.
This is June 27th, 2018. So they were aware of this one then. So I would ask Sally if she's got a list. Because I would guess she does, although she did say in the Conservation Commission the other night in that meeting, she didn't think they had control over this.
Yeah.
They do. And they knew it as of 2018.
And what I'm more referring to is, if we're going to do a plan to better maintain that parcel, if we have 5 parcels that are supposed to be nature preserves in town that are under the auspices of the Conservation Commission, let's maybe, come up with a more substantive plan to kind of understand at least what we have, and, whether or not we have to maintain others.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in this particular circumstances, clearly there is a town need that I think can be addressed. But the other part of this that bothers me is this was designated as a bird and wildlife sanctuary, and yet it isn't used for anything. There are no trails through there. And it would be nice to see that developed, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
Cleaned up, developed.
Mary
Do
Flynn,
something that you can actually do a walk through there.
yeah, but obviously a sanctuary a wildlife sanctuary doesn't have to have humans go through it to be a sanctuary. Mary
No, it
Flynn
doesn't.
made sure that in her deed across on Shamrock, you can't change one, you can't cut down the tree without violating those covenants.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of sanctuaries that do have walking paths or,
Absolutely.
you know,
Pleasant Valley.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So I thought it was kind of sad because no one's going to be able to ever really appreciate it if there are birds in there, and we won't even know if there's birds in there because we don't go in there.
Well, and that raises a question, like, when you look at Pleasant Valley as a model, could we create a little as part of this building, maybe do a slightly bigger building and we'll put a little, here's some of the, critters, and that's Sally's word, and plants that are in here. And we could just do like one of those little sort of
You could,
information kiosks.
I was gonna say, you could use one of the walls of the building.
Yes.
The outside and just laminate and put
That's a
underneath
great idea.
plexiglass.
Yeah.
Consistent with bequest.
Right, right.
Exactly, we can serve several purposes here. All righty.
I believe there's a whole lot of bugs roosting in the Talbot Center anyway, so it is already sort of a bird sanctuary because they eat them.
And there's questions with the water underneath and everything. There's a bunch of questions. I think this would be a long-term solution
Mhm.
to maintaining that.
So do we have any more questions or comments from the public? Anyone's hand raised, Michael?
Well, let me check. Don't see
Hello.
anyone. Oh,
Wait,
Anita.
wait.
Anita?
Yes, hi. I wanted to say, Roxanne, I liked your idea about the blinking light in the crosswalk. I know what you're talking about in Lenox. And actually, when I saw the agenda item, I thought it might have been about the Red Lion intersection. And I wondered if we could follow Lennox's lead there, where they have the three-way stop sign at their intersection with 183. They have little yellow signs on their stop signs. Like one of them says oncoming traffic does not stop. One of them says traffic coming from the left does not have to stop. I just find that helpful. I wonder if we
Right,
could
Anita,
look into that.
We've already done that.
Yeah,
There is a little yellow sign underneath the stop sign. If you are coming in from town, from the west, and looking at the Red Lion Inn by Judy Abdallah's house, there is a little yellow sign. We did it, I don't know, a year and a half ago.
I never
Maybe.
noticed it.
No, I never noticed that. And lately I've been coming down from Prospect because of the detour. And I hold my breath when I have to make the left turn or go straight across. It's a little
know.
frightening.
Oh, well, you already copied them, so.
We can copy them
Unfortunately,
again.
the oncoming traffic on Main Street, they don't have a sign. It's only a three-way stop. But our stop signs do have additional signage
Yeah.
under them now.
Okay, thank you.
I
It's
think we
good
should do
to
an
know. I'll look
underpass.
for it.
Have to look.
Do an underpass.
yes.
Uh,
Before we move on from the Talbot Center though, can I have a suggestion? I don't know if we can do it. The last sentence on the warrant talks about the fact that the town can conduct any other business that comes up, that was unforeseen. And I hate the idea that we keep, through no fault of ours or anyone else's, but we lose a year. We go through a process and it takes a year to do a budget. Can we maybe make a motion and put $25,000 in the budget or whatever Mike thinks it might cost to move the building so that we actually have money this year to accomplish this, what seems to be a really good idea of yours? I don't want to wait a year.
I don't think we have to wait a year. Do you?
I think a lot of it would depend on the cost, which is the one piece we don't know yet.
Don't have
We're
that.
talking $5,000 to $8,000 for a shed garage because we already have the slab. We could probably encumber that from some monies available, including reserve funds that we have left in this year. We have a couple options as far as going forward. I will try to, we'll try tomorrow to maybe contact Sheds and stuff or the guy up in Lane and just say, hey, I'll ask you to get just try to get an estimate on what something like that would be.
I'm just saying
This has
that,
only come up in the last couple of days, so it's sort of like, okay. So let me find out what we're talking about for a price and see whether it really needs to be something.
the warrant allows us though to bring something like this up and come up with a number that we could fund. And it just strikes me that why,
There are other means though to obtain
oh,
funds.
there may be if we get a price, but if we don't, if it exceeds the
We
price.
already have
We
a
could-
very,
Like I
very,
said, we could do a reserve account transfer with an encumbrance to do this.
right.
And right now, there's still money available left in there. So I'll take a quick look tomorrow and try to have a recommendation for you. All right?
Yeah.
You do have Beth,
At the length of the meeting, so.
Yeah,
Beth has her hand up.
I do. I just wanted to mention, after living in Stockbridge for almost close to 25 years, that the big issue that I'm noticing with that three-way stop at the intersection of Route 7 and 102 is that the people are used to going right through, like the ones that are approaching the Red Lion Inn at that, they don't stop at that stop sign. They yield. And that to me seems to be the biggest issue, because when a three-way stop sign, everybody's supposed to take their turn. However, people do not stop at that corner at the Red Lion Inn. They just don't. So maybe there's something in the program or the procedure, or whatever it is that we come to, some way of alerting them to really take a full stop and notice that there is a three-way stop there, because that's my biggest issue, trying to go from 102 straight onto Main Street, going from Prospect Hill because of the detour, whether I'm going north or south, that the people at the Red Lion Inn making that right-hand turn do not make the right-hand turn. They don't stop at the right-hand turn. They just yield. And that is an issue in terms of congestion of traffic and so on, and of course, safety. So I just want to point that out. I've been really noticing it since we've been discussing the issue of that corner and that whole area there of how we're going to handle it. So I just want to mention it at the meeting tonight.
That's a matter, yeah, that's a matter for law enforcement.
They're there quite a bit.
Well, they're not there. I mean, they're not there 90% of the time. I'm talking everyday traffic going in and out of Stockbridge, which I do. So, but yeah, that's a big issue. People don't stop at that stop sign, and I don't know how to get them to stop there. There are other areas in Berkshire County that I've experienced the same issue, but we're talking
Which one are you talking about?
specifically
Coming from the
about that
west?
corner.
I mean, I think you're talking about coming from the south, right? Correct.
I'm talking about coming from the south, and I'm also coming from the north. So if you're coming down Prospect Hill and you have to get across that intersection, the people who are approaching from the north, from the south, do not stop at that stop sign. They just continue. And
Yeah, no, I know. I think they call it a California stop, right? Or rolling stop, kind of like slow down a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe the lights like Lennox does, you know, how they have the solar light with the flashing stop sign. I think that might be better there than just having to stop sign.
Well, that's an idea. That's something that we could research in terms of, are we allowed to do that? I think that's still within the town's jurisdiction at that point where the stop sign is.
Yeah.
The state's jurisdiction starts at the tip, I think, right around the tip of that island where the cat and dog fountain is, you know, the point. So I think if it's allowable under universal traffic code, then.
But you could put an illuminated sign. I mean, like I said to you about the yield sign, the question is whether or not that crosswalk is one continuous crosswalk and you'd have to have identifiers on each end, or how does it meet the code? There's already a stop sign. It's already a three-way established stop. You can absolutely put in those type of enhanced visual signs.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's something if you were to decide to move ahead with that can, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that we could consider. I mean, specifically for that one, because I've noticed the same thing. On the other hand, the one thing about that stop sign is even if you stop at that stop sign, and it's the same over on Elm Street, you can stop at the stop sign, right? And you've got a crosswalk right in front of you, but then you do have to creep forward to be able to make your turn. And so it's the same at Elm Street. You have to stop to make sure you're not hitting a pedestrian, but then you've got the trough. So you do have to pull forward to be able to see if you can pull out or not. And it's very similar. We've alleviated it some by eliminating some parking at the very corner of the Red Lion Inn there. So the visual is better now. But it's still, you know, people have to creep forward to determine if they can keep going.
Right.
If somebody's coming.
That's the only way to get across safely.
Right.
Right.
So, but I think the idea of a flashing sign is a great idea.
And gosh forbid,
Just
there's a
for
Mack
that-
truck
just for
with a
that
really
stop sign.
tall, engine block that is in that right lane going right, and you're trying to go straight across because you cannot see above that. And I've had a situation, it was a terrible storm where a woman and her very young child, I was about to do that creep thing, and literally they stepped out from the front of the Mack truck in front of me. And I had no idea they were even in the crosswalk. It is very dangerous in that area, and I think,
Really slow.
and I think that, if you're talking about only on Judy's side, I think that one of the things we might want to look at is on both the southbound and northbound side, on that side of the road.
That's what I was referring to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Thank
All
All right, well,
you.
thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
Anyone else?
Not seeing anyone else.
All right, so hearing none, I move that we enter into executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body. And we will be returning to open meeting session upon completion of the executive session. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Hi, Patrick.
Hi,
Hi,
Chuck.
Roxanne. So I move that we close executive session and go back into open session.
No, second.
Hi,
All those
Patrick.
in favor?
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, Roxanne. All righty, so do I hear a motion to accept the highway contract?
I'll make a motion to accept the highway employee contract.
I second. All those in favor?
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Roxanne.
Hi, Chuck. Thank you.
Getting things done, as Chuck says.
Getting things done. Move forward.
All right, so we are closing the select board meeting for Stockbridge, June 10th, 2021 at 8:01.
9:35.
Good night.